Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Iman Ramawi Doster. I am the fabulous host of my so called disabled life because, well, things keep happening to me with my disabled life. I haven't been around for a few weeks because my lupus has been, woof, off the rockers, completely wild, and it does not like how busy I've been. But I am here, I'm committed, and we're going to have a wonderful time today. So I am so excited to introduce the wonderful Rebecca Cokley, who I'm interviewing today. So Rebecca Cokley is a second generation disability rights advocate who has worked to advance policies and practices to strengthening the movement, building a pipeline of diverse leadership, promoting disability pride, and mobilizing resources to promote disability economic mobility. Ooh, say that 3 times fast.
All right.
A three-time presidential appointee, Rebecca served in a key policy role at the Department of Education and the Department of Health and Human Services, as well as oversaw diversity and inclusion efforts for the Obama administration. Rebecca is a frequent speaker and contributor on issues of public policy and disability inclusion in the media and at major national conferences. She has a bachelor's degree in politics from the University of California, Santa Cruz. Her 4 big loves are family, Prince, Liverpool, and Legos. Welcome, Rebecca.
So happy to be here.
Woo, I'm so happy you're here. Um, so I've been starting off with these chats with asking folks basically who you are and why do you do what you do?
That's such a great question. I would respond with it sort of twofold. One, I am the daughter of Billy and Joni Hare, both of whom were disabled folks, the only physically disabled people in their own families. Let me make sure that I'm clear on that one. And my dad grew up the son of an ultra conservative, pretty racist federal judge in Selma, Alabama, who frequently threw activists, including John Lewis and others, in jail and ruled against them during the civil rights movement. And my parents were very unapologetic in talking about it. Like, we talked about it. It wasn't like the deep, dark family secret we didn't talk about. My dad was very clear to me from the time that I was a really little kid that he got to go to college because his dad was a judge. He wouldn't have ended up having the ability to go to college as a physically disabled man in the South at the time he went if his daddy wasn't a judge. And that we had to recognize that privilege and at the same time recognize how it was earned. And we had a moral responsibility to do good in the world and respond to racism, homophobia, sexism, discrimination in all forms as we saw it, because we had in fact benefited from it. My mom was one of 9 kids in a big Irish family. She was in the middle, also the only little person. She went back to college. She got married at 18. Like 6 months after her 18th birthday. My parents met at a Little People convention in 1970, where I joke that the only thing big at that convention were like the collars and the pant legs, and fell in love at first sight. My dad drove his 69 Camaro from Selma, Alabama to San Francisco to marry his flower child bride. And my mom's choices were really, she got married at 18 because my dad wanted to get married and wasn't going to wait. And they ended up separating when she chose to go back to school. Like, he left us the day after she got accepted to college. And I watched my mom and I did homework together at the dining room table. I remember that really clearly. She walked into the disabled students office at the community college she was going to and saw how badly the students were being treated. And something happened in her that moment. She used to say that, like, she got struck by lightning, and she knew that her goal in life was to take over that center and make it a place where the students would be welcomed and feel safe and feel supported. And so she went back to school to do that. And I watched her work nonstop, like working full time, going to school full time, taking care of me, taking care of my parents when they were together, taking care of my grandparents, um, to make life better for our community. And when my dad was alive, he ran a center for independent living. And, I think about the fact that he was running a center in the Bay Area at the height of the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. And I remember Saturdays when we would go to funerals for either somebody that my dad knew through the IL or that my mom knew through the disabled students office. And I remember many times us being the only people there and asking my parents, like, why are we here? Like, nobody else is here. And when you're 7, you don't understand. You want to go to the mall, you want to go ice skating. But like your parents are like, no. And in San Francisco, all the cemeteries are in this like mini town called Colma because they moved them out of the city during the earthquake in 06. And so it's this town that's like wall-to-wall cemeteries. And I remember like watching my parents, like on a Saturday, watching them take the turn off to Colma and being like, oh my God, another funeral. And my parents were like, nobody deserves to be buried without people that remember them there. And it being a real serious lesson for me. And so like when I think about like where some of my earliest perspectives on the world we live in and our responsibility to do right and make things better comes from, it really comes from my parents.
That was such a beautiful way that you answered that, because that brought back memories of like my mother didn't go to college until I graduated high school too, and while I was doing homework and working on things, she was also at the kitchen table doing homework as
It's
well.
real.
Yeah,
Like
no, it's
it,
really
like
real.
you see firsthand, I think when you watch your parents dedicate themselves to something to better themselves and to better your family's existence, it becomes really real.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So speaking of parenthood and motherhood, you have kids, and yeah, and so what has your experiences like being a woman with disabilities and also with kids?
My kids are amazing. They are really cool people, and each one of them is like 10 times cooler than I ever have the hope of being. They are so smart and funny and caring and observant about the world. I was actually looking at a photo the other day of my son and daughter doing the cha-cha slide in the hall of the White House. Like one day, like I had brought them into work. We were giving a tour to a friend who was in town. And like literally, it's like Jackson and Kaya. Jackson's probably 4 or 5, and Kaya's like 2 or 3. And they're just doing the cha-cha slide. And I remember like making a point of taking a photo in that moment because I'm like, we're never going to see this again. Like this is amazing. And this is just, I want them to remember this time. And they'll be too little to like remember it logically, but like when they look at photos, they'll be able to be like, oh, this is that time that we were cha-cha sliding in the middle of the White House because like we were coming home from a tour late one night. I remember, actually, it was funny. I remember when my husband and I started dating because we worked at the same nonprofit. And some young people with disabilities in Florida invited me to come down and meet with them because they were working on a state disability history law. And Florida ended up being like the 3rd state in the country to pass a law like this. And I remember asking Patrick if he wanted to go with me. And he was like, sure. And, as part of speaking at this conference and working with these young people, like I got comped passes for Disney World. So we're like, I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Like we'll have like a nice weekend. I'll speak at the conference. We'll work with these young people. We'll go to Disney. It'll be cool. Like back before Disney sucked. And it was really fascinating because the young people really wanted to talk about dating. Like they didn't know any disabled people that were dating. And my husband has a vision disability. And so like he came by for like a minute to like bring me coffee or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's my boyfriend, Patrick. And they're like, oh, Patrick, we want to meet you. Patrick, come in and talk to us. And like he came in and said hi and talked to a couple of people. And actually he was running at the time the federal government's internship program for young people with disabilities. And he was like, hey, if anybody's interested, here's my card. Hit me up. Let's talk. Let's get you guys interviews scheduled. Would love to get you guys internships. And then he left. And I literally spent like 30 minutes to an hour talking about dating. as a disabled person. And I never thought about that as radical because I grew up in the little people community. And like, there's a lot of dating in our community. There, like, we joke that if you're a little person and you're born in April and your parents are little people, that you're a banquet night baby. Like, there is like, I've always been used to seeing disabled people date. And so, I mean, I think, growing up in the LPA community, but also growing up in the Bay Area, like, that was a thing. And I never realized like what a treat that was, like how special that was until meeting these young people. And they were like, so how did you get a boyfriend? How do you know if you're being treated right? Like, I like this boy in my school, or I like this girl at my school, and I think she's just like playing head games with me or whatever. And I realized, like, I never thought about that as a radical thing until then. And the fact that they were like, oh, we can date. We should date. We deserve to be in happy relationships. And so I think about that. And then I think about, like, as we got married and bought a house, and had kids. And like, I've had people come up to me after when I was pregnant with Jackson, like other friends in the community being like, we're going to have a baby. Why? Because y'all can do it. And I was like, yeah, have a baby. Like, go for it. Let's do it. Baby time. Let's roll. And I never thought about that as like a radical choice, but then I remember like when I was pregnant with Jackson and like having a whole conversation with Judy Human, and she was like, I'm so excited that you get to be a mom because I always wanted to be a mom. And she's like, and it just didn't work out. And to look at somebody like Judy, who I had the pleasure of knowing most of my life, and to be like, you feel unfulfilled because of this one thing. And yet I am able to become a mom because of the foundation that you and so many others laid. And you laid that foundation by making choices, or having those choices made for you in some cases because of things like Buck versus Bell and others. And so like being a parent is another step in disabled folks achieving, I don't want to call it the American dream because I think it's bogus, achieving another step towards equity. For those that want to be parents, because not everybody wants to be a parent, and that's your right. But like, I had never really thought about it as an extension of the work that they had done. But being a parent's amazing. It's exhausting. It's 10 times harder than any other job I've ever had. I would rather be up at 2 a.m. writing speeches for Valerie Jarrett in an uncomfortable chair in the old executive office building in DC, than going through labor again. But being a parent is like, it is exhausting, it is rewarding, it is frustrating, but there's like, I have yet to find a better job, a better use of my time.
That's just another beautiful answer, because I think that when folks often think about anyone with a disability, they're like, you're not getting married, you're not having kids, you're not birthing children. And it's like, wait, what? What are you talking
It was
about?
so funny because like Patrick and I talked about when I was pregnant with Jackson, in the little people space, everybody was like, because we didn't, if both parents are little people, they have a 25% chance of a miscarriage. And so because Patrick's average height, like, we knew that the baby was going to make it in all likelihood. But we didn't know if the baby had a 50% chance of being a little person and a 50% chance of being average height. And it was so funny that all my little people all assume they're going to be a little person. They're like, yeah, little person, let's go. Another generation. Woohoo.
Right.
And all our average height friends are like, well, I'm sure you just want the baby to be healthy. And I realized like we were to me, healthy was like, oh, little person or average height. Like, and that's not what most of my average height friends meant.
Yeah.
And having to sit there and be like, well, what do you mean by healthy? Because what I assume of as healthy is not what you perceive of as healthy. And
Like
that's okay, but let's actually let's actually unpack our stereotypes for a minute.
No, absolutely. And a lot of these assumptions are just based on fear and misconceptions and just straight up lies and all that weird. Like, I'm sure you might have watched or heard of that dumpster fire press conference the other day about autism. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And they, they want to treat us like we're, quote, like weirdos or anomalies when in fact we are not. We happen
And
in
we've
nature.
always
Like,
existed.
always, always. No, it's totally.
I mean, I remember when I had my youngest, because my youngest kid is average height, and we were at getting a sonogram, and my OBGYN was there, and she's the same OBGYN I've had with all my kids. And I love her to death. She's in DC, and I still I'll take the Amtrak to DC to still see her, because as a disabled woman, finding an OBGYN that gets you is like a black Amex.
Holy crap.
Like,
Yes.
she is my Black American Express card. I love her. I would get in
You
a bar
keep her
fight
for
for her.
life.
Like, she is my person. And I remember the sonographer being like, well, everything is measuring right. And I was like, I don't think so. And like, we knew we were having an average height kid, but I was just like, what do you mean by everything looks normal? He's like, everything is perfectly normal. And I'm like, those arms, oh my God, they're so long. Like, oh. And I was like, those legs. I'm like, Dr. Jackson, like, what kind of life is this baby gonna have? Like, what kind of jobs can they do? And she's like, I don't know, like maybe they could dust. And I'm like, maybe I could pay them to change light bulbs. Like, and the stenographer is tripping, because he's like, this baby is perfectly normal. Why would you say such things? And I'm like, because I don't know what to do. Like, am I having a spider baby? And this poor person, this poor radiologist, I swear, I thought he was going to cry. Like, he was like, the baby is perfectly normal. There is nothing wrong with this baby. And my doctor and I are cracking up to the point of tears. And she's like, we're just messing with you. Like, we're good. Go about your day. But it was just so funny continuing to find different ways that ableism, like, I mean, and of course, ableism shows up in the medical profession. I mean, that's where it's grounded. But just to continue to see it just like pop up and like find amusing ways to entertain yourself while combating it.
Yeah, I know. I love it when you can have a medical professional that you got to see on a semi-regular basis, that you can have a joke with, and actually like you. And I know for myself and a ton of other disabled folks I know, we have some incredibly dark humor, and some people don't like it. But when you find a doctor who likes it, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna lean on it. Heck yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's wonderful. So also you were talking about some of the conferences and work that you go to, and how it's inspired by the things you saw with your parents, and you're clearly doing that with your kids as well. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned over time about not only being a good human, a good woman, a good parent, good wife, a good Rebecca? Like, what are the things that make you happy, and what do you enjoy doing?
So like I said, my four loves are my family. Prince, massive Prince fan. The Liverpool Reds football club. I get the alert straight to my phone. We won the championship last year. I'm hoping we'll win it again this year. Mo Salah is the most incredible human being on the face of the planet. And I'm sitting in my home office, and it literally is full of Legos. Like, there's a couple behind me, but like, I have like the massive Lord of the Rings set over here. I have the bust of King T'Challa from Black Panther behind the computer. Like, there is I have the pyramid at Giza. I have probably about 3 dozen Lego sets on shelves in this room. And it honestly quiets my brain. It was something I always wanted to do as a kid, but I mean, I grew up with a single mom who worked full time, and Legos were expensive even then. And when I became a grown-ass adult with a grown-ass adult job, I started buying Legos, and they make me happy. And I'm not crafty. My mom was super crafty. Like, she could, and I think part of it was also just being a little person. It was cheaper if you were crafty. So she could sew. She altered our clothing. She made me dresses. She could knit sweaters. Like, she was like super crafty. I can't do any of that, but I can build the hell out of a bunch of Legos. And, I think with all the stress in the world, like, it quiets my brain. And it's one of those things that I can tell, especially in moments like this, when like the external world is a mess, that if I haven't built something, I'll start feeling like this itch and this added level of anxiety. And I already live with anxiety, but like it's anxiety plus. Um, and I'll be like, and my husband will actually say it to me too. He'll be like, do you have anything you can build right now? Because I think you need to build something. And so he just bought me for our anniversary was Saturday, and he just bought me the Lego Transformers Shockwave set. So that's on my list. But I have like about 5 or 6 sets down here in the basement that I haven't touched yet. And it was one of those things that like I remember sitting there and being like, this is kind of an indulgence to just buy Lego and like build Lego. And then I was like, why do we consider the things often that accommodate us, that help us self-regulate, or like, reconfigure yourself in some ways, like extravagances, when they're good for our mental health. And so, yeah, I don't beat myself up for having a line item in my monthly budget for Lego anymore. And it brings me joy.
No, absolutely. I think sometimes in our fights of social justice, especially for like disability equity, we forget about disabled joy all the time. And like yesterday, for example, I just went to go pick up some paintings, and then I ended up just staying and painting.
That's
With my
awesome.
friend, and I made this really cool painting, and I was like, oh my god, this is cool. And so
You were
I gotta
totally
find more.
meant to be there to do that.
Yeah, no, for real. So I'm like, I need to just lean into my disabled joy. I'm gonna go do these joyful.
We have to, because they don't want us to have it.
Gosh, no. Oh gosh,
it's its own act of being radical.
And I think a lot of these things that you've been talking about today are actually incredibly radical, because one, we don't see publicly so many of these examples unless you're like searching for it or you're in it, in the community of it. And so we need to have all this representation out there. And that's one of the reasons why I'm like, you know what, fine. If I've got to be public facing, I will do it, because I never saw anyone like me when I was a little kid. And I was like,
Absolutely.
oh, so I can't, be an artist and be a writer and be an organizer and and I was like, well, no, I can. Let me do it. And let me make that example for all the other young Black and brown disabled kids who might think that they can't do it because they don't see it. But
yeah,
I do it on purpose. So do you find that you're like an accidental icon for all kinds of things?
In some ways, yeah, and there's times I enjoy it. And I'm also, one of my dearest friends, Vilissa Thompson, I always call her the patron saint of boundaries. And I'll remind myself too that it's like, I like being a double Sagittarius too, that I'm like, put me out there. Like, I'm ready to do all the things. And then I'm like, I'm effing exhausted. I have nothing else to give. Like, I'm not even like, there's not even spoons left in my drawer. There's like a packet of hot sauce and like the nub of a chopstick. That's all that's left. Like, we are negative spoons. And so I also have to remind myself that it's like, no, I need my time to recharge. I need my time to, I need my me time. I need my time to read. I need my time to Lego, whatever it is. But I do think, I think some of my, like, frankly, my favorite moments of the Obama administration were giving tours to kids with disabilities. Like, I would work late on nights. I love doing evening tours and weekend tours. And when I would meet families with kids with disabilities, I would be like, hey, have you ever been to the White House? You need to come to the White House. Here's my card. Email me. Let me give you a West Wing tour. And like taking them into the White House. I remember my ultimate favorite thing was like showing them the path that FDR had made down from the back of the West Wing lobby to the East Wing residence, which then became the standard for the grade for ramps under the Architectural Barriers Access Act, before the ADA. And like be able to say, no, you deserve to be in this place. Like, this is your house. And because I'm here, you deserve to be here. Because I ended up at the White House because of Paul Stephen Miller, who was a little person and a mentor of mine. And Paul used to tell me all the time, like, you deserve to be here. And to be able to give that message to kids, but also making sure their parents heard it. Because that was the other thing. Like, they were like, oh, it's so cute. This disabled woman is giving a tour to our disabled kid. And I'm like, yeah, mom and dad, like, you need to hear this because I expect your son or daughter to go to college. I expect you to support them in doing that. I expect you to support them in doing whatever the heck it is they want to do. If they want to be like on Top Chef, go ahead. If you want to do nails, do nails. Like, whatever brings you joy and whatever brings you fulfillment, do that. But this is also an option for you. And people like us belong here. And that was honestly like my favorite times of being able to be like, hi, I'm your token disabled tour guide. Like, welcome to the White House. Because like, I can't imagine, like, I couldn't have imagined growing up without people with high expectations for me, and that opened doors for me. And the idea that we had access to a building and we could invite people in whenever we wanted and show it off and show how American democracy should work and that they deserve to be part of that. Was like I still get like it gives me permagrin like a first date where you're just like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever.
That's absolutely true. Anytime any kids are around and they want to talk about my prosthetics or talk about my walker or talk about, you know, taking my legs on and off and stuff, I'm just like, yes, we're going to do that. And, oh, you could be a prosthetist if you'd like, you know, you can study, you know, the body and do all that stuff. And I've had so many talks with disabled kids who are actually interested in doing something like that. And I'm like, wow, there you go.
Like, now my whole thing is, now as a 46-year-old woman going through perimenopause, now like I bust out my fan places because of hot flashes, and literally everybody's like, ooh, where'd you get that fan? What's that fan for? I'm like, dude, perimenopause and menopause can be disabilities. This is my reasonable accommodation. It keeps me happy. It keeps me cool. And you should all have one.
Well, I am also in the perimenopause club, so I got my water break. So
yes, I got my water, got my fan. Like, we see, that's what you need to market. You should market that for the podcast.
I know, right? Perimenopause accessories. That's wild. Yeah, my husband's gonna be mad if I add another thing to my list that I want to do. He's like, you have enough. I know you're super talented, but you keep forgetting that you got all these disabilities and your chronic illness. And I'm like, bro,
I haven't seen anyone do the We Do Not Care Club for the disability community yet.
Interesting. I'm not just don't tell Will.
I'll keep it.
See, this is why I love talking to people about their lives, and the way you've been talking about it is just painting such a beautiful picture. So you said you had a few heroes. What is, like, I guess a few of the most inspiring things, without it being like, you know, because I know with disability sometimes we teeter between inspiration and then inspiration porn, and it's like, oops, my bad. But are there any messages they gave you that were inspiring?
You know, I'm a big fan of the book A Wrinkle in Time, and the message that Meg gets from Mrs. Whatsit, who says, stay angry, Meg, because you need your anger. And I think that's really real. And I think as disabled folks, we're told not to be angry. Like, we are told to be the negative of angry. We are told to be accommodating. And when I was in middle school, I had a really good friend who was also a little person who lived about an hour away from me. And he got beaten up one day at school. He got thrown in a dumpster, and he couldn't get out of the dumpster because the lid of the dumpster was too high. And so after school came, and he was supposed to go to Scouts after school. So his mom and dad and his siblings didn't think anything about the fact he wasn't home. It gets to the evening. His mom's worried. She calls the Scoutmaster. They're like, oh, no, Vaughn wasn't at Scouts. And so she calls a couple of his other friends. Oh, no, we haven't seen him since lunchtime. Tracks down the teacher. Oh, no, he wasn't in school after lunch. We thought you took him out for an appointment. So he had a really great social network. He had really amazing siblings. And so, like, they called all their friends. It was like Stranger Things, like 20 kids on bikes going around the neighborhood looking for him. They found him in the dumpster. They got him out. The next day, when he went to school, he carried like a tea bat with him that he got from like a Giants game. and they expelled him for harboring a weapon. And he was 11, and his mom called my mom, because at the time my mom was also the ADA coordinator for the community colleges of California, and was also active in our Little People chapter. And his mom called my mom and was like, Joni, we have to go to battle with the school district. Would you come up with us and come to this meeting? And my mom was like, absolutely. And my mom made me come along. And I had never had my accommodations questioned in my schools. I think it was also, I mean, I went to the same elementary schools my mom had gone to. And like, so I ended up having some of the same teachers. And there was never a, we're not going to do this for you. There was never a teasing is okay. Like, I was always really supported and included. And my mom was like, I want you to see that that's not the reality for everybody. And so we went to this meeting, and I remember sitting there with my friend, and the principal saying, well, boys will be boys. And Vaughn, who was my friend, Vaughn, hey, you just need to get used to this, because that's what boys like you are going to have to deal with in your life. And I remember watching my mom lose her shit and just being like, at that point, I had only ever seen my mom that mad once. And that was when she found that I hid a phone bill for $447 after a Little People convention, back when like I was calling people on daytime rates. Oh my God. My mom was so mad at this meeting. Like, I remember just sitting there and being like, oh, this guy does not know what he has coming. And it made me so angry. Like, I'm still angry when I think about it. And when I think about like I tend to have a very black and white view of justice in the world. Like, there is right and there is wrong. And I know, hypothetically, I know that there is a gray area and whatever. I don't care about gray. Like, no kid should have to experience that. No kid should have that behavior justified by the adults in their lives. And it really, like, as I would say to Alice Wong in this moment, like, that's where my supervillain origin story started. Like, it's that day, like right there. You know, and I think that for me was a really big thing. I think also for me, getting to serve on the Obama campaign. And I mentioned my hero, my friend Paul Stephen Miller, who's passed away now. Actually, my friend Vaughn has passed away now too. My friend Paul, well, in the beginning of the Obama campaign, you had the Obama people and the Clinton people. And the Clinton people were also the people that had worked for President Bill Clinton. And they were like a really tight-knit crew. And the Obama people were like the younger ragtag, more grassroots organizers, a couple of establishment people, but not a lot of folks. And I remember calling my friend Paul, and Paul had worked for Bill Clinton. And I was like, Paul, you need to come check out Obama. I was like, you don't need to hang out with the Clintons. You need to come work for Obama. This would be awesome. This is a great campaign. We're doing really great stuff. And he was like, well, send me some paper. Let me read it. And Paul was a little person who was also a civil rights lawyer. He created the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act. He ended up being the longest serving commissioner on the EEOC. He actually served more days than Thurgood Marshall, which was one of his claims to fame. And about a week went by, and he called me and he said, okay, I want to join the Obama campaign. And he's like, I'm going to piss off a lot of people. They're going to talk a lot of trash. And he's like, but I like what he brings to the table. And I was like, okay, so here's when our first call. And he was like, no, you go back to them and you tell them that you're bringing me onto the campaign. And I didn't realize at the time what he was doing, because I was like, man, this is another step in the bureaucracy. Dude, can't you just hop on the call? And he said to me, he was like, no, I want them to see that you can bring in someone like me. And he's like, because like most dwarf men, he's like, I'm kind of a big deal, which is a whole thing in our community. But he was like, it's a big deal if you bring me in, versus if I come in, anyone can take credit for it. This is you being part of the next generation of political leadership in the disability community. He's like, I'm a whale. Like, I deserve to be treated like a whale at a casino. And so like, you get to be you're my hook. Like, you bring me in. And I remember calling the campaign and being like, hey, so I just had a conversation with EEOC Commissioner Paul Stephen Miller, and he wants to join the campaign. And it like shifted everything. Like I got talked to differently, I got perceived of differently. Um, and I remember just like being like, did you know what you were doing? He's like, of course, child. He's like, kid, of course I know what I'm doing. And he's like, we need more of us at the table. And, you know, he was very much like me, where he's like, I don't like a lot of people, but I like you. And like, we're never going to shift the tables unless we shift who's at them. And he's like, this is a way for me to use my privilege to support you and shifting the dynamic. He's like, you now need to start thinking about, as you level up, how are you going to shift who's at the table? How are you going to design tables that look differently? How are you going to make sure that the dialogues that the community has about the issues the community cares about are really centering those most directly impacted? And this was way before, like, this is the conversation we were having way before the conception of disability justice framework by Eli Clare and Leah Lakshmi, Pipiesna Samarinsa, and Stacy Milburn Park and all of those folks. But he was like, we have to actually shift. We can actually think about how we use our power and our privilege to change what the tables look like. And so I actually keep a Post-it note back here on my desk that says WWMD for what would Miller do? For moments where I'm like, so what do I do in this moment? Because I think sometimes like it's easy to think we have all the answers and we don't. So yeah, so those are the two people that like when I think about like who have really inspired me to be where I am today, like both Vaughn and Paul.
That's awesome. Yeah, you know, sometimes in especially like in large communities that are also niche at the same time, you find that a lot with folks who consider themselves big fish and want you to usher them forward and want to use you for it, but also want to get you in the fold as well. It's so I've always found those things so fascinating.
I love a good entourage. I'm like, you shouldn't go
Yeah.
anywhere by yourself. Like, who are you bringing with you? Who are your people?
No, for real. I love an entourage as well. That's yes, that's what's up. So you talked a bit about being in so many different settings with both with and without folks with disabilities. Have you experienced a lot of discrimination or ableism or even like sexism, to be perfectly
There is not a job I have worked in where I have not faced discrimination. I mean, I remember working retail and being the top salesperson at my Victoria's Secret years ago. And when our district manager came in, I would be sent to the stockroom. And I found out she wasn't comfortable with little people or disabled people in general. And her boss showed up one day to do a visit. And her boss was an icon of Victoria's Secret in the aughts. Her boss was named Dee Dee. And I remember Dee Dee coming into the stockroom being like, who's number 32? And she had like a list of the sales for things. She's like, who's 32? And I was like, I'm 32. And she was like, why are you in the stockroom? And I was like, and I didn't know who this woman was. Stunning, extremely tall African-American woman with the most amazing fade I had ever seen. And I was like, I don't lose anything being honest. I'm like, because Linda doesn't like little people. And she was like, okay, come with me. And she's like, let me see what you can do. You know, I remember being at the White House and being asked if I got my job because I participated in a very well-known, internationally recognized sporting program for people with disabilities. And they're like, you're just the cutest thing. Did you get your job because you were a part of X program? You know, I've been in jobs where I've asked for accommodations. Like I asked for a small laptop because tiny hands, and was asked, why do you need that? And they wanted documentation from my doctor why I needed an 11-inch laptop versus like a massive laptop. You know, and I didn't used to talk about it, but I think it's important to talk about it because I think there's an assumption that when you get to a certain level, of your career, that like, oh no, there's not discrimination at that level, or no one would discriminate against you for being disabled at X place. And that's just not the case. Like, it is still so pervasive everywhere. And I can always tell when someone else is dealing with it too, because I'll get the email that's like, hey, can we grab a cup of coffee? I'm like, okay, you're either quitting or you've been discriminated against, because otherwise we don't really talk. And if you want to talk to me, it means that like someone has done you wrong or someone has said something they shouldn't have said to you. And so I do make a point of talking about it frequently, because I think we do, like, I remember Stacy Milburn Park when Stacy was a high schooler, and Stacy telling me that when she was really young, that she had the belief that when she turned 18, she'd no longer be disabled, because people in her life had told her that. And when she turned 18, she rolled out of bed, and you know what? She fell on her butt. And I think culturally, because of this like bootstrap pro-capitalist mentality, we want to brush over those things that are tough. We want to brush over I talk about having a bad dwarf day. Like, I remember one day being chased down the street by a kid in DC who was yelling like, midget, midget, midget. And then went to Cirque du Soleil that night, pulled my car in the parking lot with my husband, rolled down the window to ask where the disability parking was. And they were like, why are you in the show? And I was like, so I lost my temper. Then park, like find out where the parking is, park the car, go in. And of course there are little people in this show, but was just like, in the moment was just like, are you kidding me? And I think it's really easy to put out this image that everything is all good, and, because you have what you need, that it doesn't exist anymore. And that's just not the case.
Yeah, I've experienced that so much with people who don't have any experience, have very little experience with like disability and chronic illnesses, or even discrimination.
Yeah.
And they just don't believe me when I'm telling them about it. They're like, that didn't happen. That's not true. And I'm just like, would you like me to bust out my phone and record it when it's happening? Because what? It's or like even there's a lot of, unfortunately, some lateral ableism in our community as well. And I've had so many people act so awful to me, and I'm like, what who hurt you? Like, damn, like it's so amazing that still you're
Well, and I
Lord
think we have,
2025.
I think we have a responsibility of talking about it and addressing. There have been times, like, I walked into a meeting one time and I have really serious migraines. And I always say that people assume my dwarfism is my most disabling condition because it's the most apparent. But my migraines will keep me home with my head in a toilet bowl for like 2 or 3 days. And I remember walking into a meeting where I was supposed to get an award, and someone in that room was wearing such seriously like stinky ass perfume that I walked in the door and I had to stop. And I had to leave. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. And they're like, what do you mean? And I was like, I have to have I let you know, as in my accommodation request, that I needed a scent free space, and it is not scent free in there. And they were like, well, we have a stool. Like, the stage has a ramp. There's an accessible podium. And I was like, that's great. Give it to another little person. Like, I am getting actively sick sitting here. And I do think that there is this very real stigma around chronic health conditions still, because there's this assumption that they're not real, or that they're not as significant, especially if you also have like an apparent or a mobility disability. And they're like, oh, that's your secondary. That's just your annoyance. And it's like, nah, this is like more than annoying.
I can't tell you how many people thought my lupus was cured when I became an amputee 13 years ago. And I'm like, wait,
what?
Yeah.
No. Oh my.
They were like, you still have that? I'm like, what? Did I like suddenly become a magical fairy and like sprinkle myself with magical dust and Like, and I couldn't believe people were saying that. Like, they thought that I could suddenly like scale buildings like Spider-Man.
Those
And I
people
was
have
like,
special
what?
needs. Those people have real special needs. Like,
Yes.
oh my gosh.
People come up to me and ask and say some of those wild things. And what's so funny is sometimes I'm talking to someone on the phone when they do that,
Yeah.
or I'm on a video call when they do that, or I'm doing a live stream when they do that. I'm like, see, y'all believe me now? You literally just heard it yourself.
I
With a
remember
little
I remember being at a little people convention when I was pregnant, and there was a drunk little person on a scooter, and I was like hugely pregnant. Like little people look like we're smuggling watermelons when we're pregnant anyways. But like I'm standing there outside the dance with my friend who's drinking a beer, and this drunk woman literally rolls up on her scooter, stops, like hits a little hard, like beep on her scooter, rubs my belly, and then keeps going. And my friend and I were just like, did what? Did she just? And I was like, the hell? Like, really? That's where we're at?
people are
Like,
so weird sometimes, and all you can do is just be like stunned for a second and laugh. And it's just like,
you just
okay.
have to sit there and just be like, I yeah. I mean, I think that there's such a the idea that we demand radical ownership towards our bodies and our stories
Mm-hmm.
should not be
Mm-hmm.
perceived of as like deviant, like,
At
or
all.
radical. I'm
At
like, dude,
all.
don't touch it. Like, I had a coworker at the White House who had gorgeous natural hair, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a security guard that used to touch her hair. Um,
Oof.
and she came running in the office one day and was like, "Cokley, security's gonna call." And I was like, "What happened?" She's like, "He touched my hair again." And I remember actually talking to security and being like using myself as an example, which made them get it because I was like, look, you
Mm-hmm.
all know when I walk in front of the building, if I walk out the front doors, not the side doors, if I walk out the front doors where all the tourists are, people start taking my picture. I was like, and y'all get mad because you're worried about my safety. I was like, it is the same thing, but it is someone on our team who is touching her hair. And you should see this as an equal, if not greater, because she is a black
Mm-hmm.
woman,
Mm-hmm.
party foul here. Like, this is not okay. And I remember talking to her, and she was like, I came to you because she's like, I knew that you would get it more than
Mm-hmm.
anybody else in this building. She's like, if I go to you, she's like, A, you're going to fight for me. But B, you're going to understand like how invasive it is in this moment. And people
Absolutely. There's
people have
yeah.
no sense.
There's like literally you suddenly don't get to ask people for like consent to like not
Oh
when you have it.
no.
I've had so many strangers just walk up to me on the street and touch me. And I'll
I
look
had
at
a guy
them.
I had a guy at the National Council of Independent Living conference who was a 504 sit-in protester. Who, when he met me, he said, "You're so cute. I want to bend you over my wheelchair and spank you like a bad girl." And I remember just being like, and I was
What?
on the phone with my godmother in the Bay who knows him. And she was like, put him on the phone. She's like, who said that to you? And I was like, X person. And she's like, give him the phone. And she was like, I will take your nuts off and shove them down your throat.
Mm,
And she's
mm.
like, sweetie, if you're going to survive in the activist pool, throw some elbows.
You do,
Um,
yes. Mm-hmm.
and she's like, we don't call out bad behavior in our community, and we have to.
Nope. Yep.
And it became one of those things that I was just like, yeah, no, like, no, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, people like, there's
Yeah.
boundaries, people, common sense.
Yeah. No, and we're gonna have to do like a 2.0 of this with like the sexism in the community and
Yes.
the lack of they feel entitled to us, and
Yeah.
they're like, why are you saying no to me? Who the hell are you? And it's like, wow, men are just men across the entire galaxy. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I remember somebody asked, I remember a misogynist in our community heard me say that I was working on my first book. And he came up and he asked me what I was writing. And I was like, oh, a history of sexism and misogyny in the disability community, which is totally not what I'm writing about. Technically. And just the look on his face, and I was like, do you want to know what chapter you're in? And I'm just like, it's become my like go-to response, because I'm just like, it is so pervasive in our community. I mean, I remember going across the street for an ADA event in DC years ago, and these old school male activists were talking crap about the women activists, their peers. And I'll be real, they were talking about Judy Heumann, they were talking about Marka Bristow, they were talking about Geraldine Hawkins, they were talking about the women that built the movement. And they were like, well, and they introduced me to their assistant, and they're like, oh, this is Rebecca Cokley. I call her and I tell her what to do. And this is when I ran the National Council on Disability. And like I said, I'm a double Sagittarius, so I shoot first and I ask questions like a month later. And before I stop, I was like, yeah, and I ignore you because you're irrelevant and a misogynist. And I just kept walking, and I was just like, are you kidding me? I mean, one of like, it is such a real thing in our space. And like, as well as, I mean, let's be real, like sexual violence in our community. I mean, it's not like, it's sexism, it's harassment, it's workplace harassment, and it's sexual violence in our community. I mean, I remember having a conversation with a bunch of little people and a bunch of blind women. And our conferences usually take place at the same time of year, like around 4th of July week. And we all knew women at both conferences that had been raped or assaulted. And it was like, how is this behavior acceptable? And we just don't talk about it. Or it's like, it's just a thing that happens between your teens and your 30s. Like, that's not a coming of age experience. And we as a community should absolutely not be okay with it. And we need to start addressing it.
I absolutely agree with that. I've had so many talks with so many disabled young women who've been sexually assaulted, constantly sexually harassed. I've tried to bring it to a lot of folks in our city government here in New York, and some of them believe me, some of them don't. They're like, disabled women getting sexually harassed, sexually assaulted. And I'm just like, you guys.
I mean, I remember years ago when the story came out about the blind women being assaulted at the training camps.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reaching out to a bunch of different women-centered law firms that were doing work on Me Too. Mm-hmm. And saying, y'all, here is a case. Like, here is a case. And being told they weren't interested in representing disabled clients. And I remember being like, then what good are you? You should drop woman-led firm. Like, there is no women leadership here.
Hello. Like, absolutely. Wow. And that, I just come across that. I see, I'm a Taurus with Scorpio rising.
Ooh,
so I'm like,
so you're
shoot now, shoot later.
Yes.
Shoot now, shoot later. I might not even ask questions. I don't care. But like, it's so infuriating. And so I really love that you shared about that quote that you read in A Wrinkle in Time. Just keep that anger stay in, because it's like, we need that anger to keep going. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about being an organizer, because you get angry and then you get active.
Yeah.
And then you take that anger and you do something with it. Hopefully good, but you do something with it. And so what are some of the things that you've worked on over the years, or even some new things that you've been working on that make you so angry that you want to do something about it?
I feel like the Incredible Hulk. I'm always angry. I think like for me, I remember learning about this, the civil rights of disabled parents, and not learning about it really until I started working at the National Council on Disability. And then even when I had my son, he had to go to the NICU for like 2 weeks after he was born. The NICU was at a separate hospital than I was at. And I remember a geneticist at the other hospital saying to my husband, so how much education do you actually have? And having to fight to get him out of the NICU at that other hospital when we realized that all she wanted to do was study and publish on my son for being a biracial disabled baby. And I remember then when I had my daughter, when the anesthesiologist asked or suggested sterilizing me and said to my OBGYN, well, she's had 2 kids. She doesn't need any more. So while you're down there, have you thought about tying her tubes? And I thought my OB was going to like jump over the drape. I was like, I'm not really well anesthetized. So if you need to jump over the drape, I might be able to grab you. Like, let's see. And not realizing how that it was perfectly legal in over 20 states to remove a child from the custody of disabled parents solely because of a parent's disability. No cause, no justification, not a police record. Like, nobody needed to see you endanger this child. Just the fact that you had a disability was enough grounds for them to take your kid. The fact that Buck versus Bell is still law, which allows the involuntary sterilization of disabled people without their consent and their knowledge. And that came up during the Kavanaugh hearings. Because it's still law. And, you know, I think those issues really make me angry. Like the intersection of disability and gender. I think, I think the issues of the carceral system and people with disabilities, just knowing that over 50% of the folks killed by cops are people of color with disabilities, and watching it play out with people I know and I love, makes me angry, makes me want to fight. I think the fact that in the state of Oregon right now, they still don't want to take disabled kids back into public schools post-pandemic. Like, that's the law. Why are we having to relitigate things that has been law for over 50 years at this point? The fact that we continue to have to fight for scraps, and I'm going to quote Ayanna Pressley on this, only to be told that we should be thankful for crumbs. I don't want your crumbs. I want equity. Like, I want justice. I want every disabled person to have what they need to grow and thrive. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't inconvenience anyone. There's more than enough pie. We have bought into this idea that there is a tiny ass pie, and that if I get a slightly bigger piece because I need home modification, or I need pedals on my car, or my kid needs 15 extra minutes on a test, that it takes away from Jim Bob or Joe from Kokomo or whatever. And that's just not the case. And we have to get over that. That's the stuff that it all makes me angry, but that's the stuff that makes me angry.
I've always been so angry about that whole, like, oh, if you get a little extra, you're taken away from me, when it's such a wild misconception that people are believing that there aren't enough resources, there's not enough space, there's not enough this, there's not enough that, when there's plenty. And it's just like, why are we excluding some people from life?
I mean, I think about the fights for years between domestic workers and disabled people around domestic workers needing better wages and better rights to organize and a career pipeline and all of those things. And yet we have a disability community who can't have more than $2,000 in a bank account without losing their health insurance. And obviously the question for the longest time that wasn't asked was, well, somebody's getting rich here, and it's not the workers and it's not the disabled people, so it's the system. But instead the system was like, oh, disabled people are selfish and don't support the workers. And then to disabled people are like, the workers are greedy and they want you to be poor so that they can be rich. And like, I'm so thankful that through like leadership from folks like Ai-jen Poo, Nicole Jorwick, folks from Caring Cross Generations, so many activists from ADAPT and other places that have come together to like come to the final realization, no, we're both being screwed by this system, and somebody's getting rich, and none of us want to be rich. We just want to have enough. And yet we don't. And that's a problem.
Absolutely. Just making all of us folks down on the bottom fight each other while they have all the resources and we're fighting over those little crumbs.
Somebody's getting rich. It's not us.
Definitely not us. Yeah. It's wild. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Um, so one of the well, I have two more questions. So what do you want your legacy to be? Like when you're gone, when you're all retired and on a cat farm, retire, what would you want to have going on? Your
Um,
legacy.
I mean, I would really like to spend my time with young people. Like, I would like to be able to continue to I mean, I think about like the elders in our community who like in the last week, um, I picked up the phone and called a bunch of my mentors that I haven't talked to in a while. And like one of them was John Modach, who was the Assistant Attorney General, ran the Disability Rights Division at the Department of Justice during the 504 sit-ins. And he's just a badass dude. I love John Modach. And I hadn't talked to him in forever. And I just like called him and was just like, hey, like, how are you? Like, can I talk to you about like this thing I'm working on? And like, I want your brain on it. And like, would you tell me like, am I in the right direction? Um, I want to like, I would love someday, honestly, to open up, like, I was thinking about Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters from X-Men. And like, for years, like, I'm a huge X-Men fan anyways. Shout out to Gail Simone, who's writing it right now and who's one of my favorite people on the face of the planet. Um, but I would love to have a house like that and have it be a place where young disabled people could come, and if they needed to live there for a while, they could, but it would have like office space or spaces where they could just think and like work on things and noodle and talk to, like, it'd be almost like the salons from the Renaissance where you could sit in the room with like people that just had interesting thoughts and like bounce ideas off of people, and be a place for strategizing our survival, and strategizing our successes, and yeah, I mean, I like that. To me is like, that's my power, like that's my what I would do if I won the Powerball. If I won the Powerball tomorrow, I would like hop on like realtor.com and find like the coolest old ass house that like we could make fully accessible, um and have it be on an accessible subway line, of which I hope that there continue to be more in New York City. And just literally have it be a place where it was like, no, this is a place for ideas. This is a place for brainstorming, and we will seed fund things and we will invest in things. And if it works, it's great. If it doesn't work, that's equally okay. But I don't think we often like have places where we have the freedom to fail in the disability space, where like non-disabled people screw stuff up all the time. It doesn't mean all their money's being taken away, but as a disabled person, like, you get, it's like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. And it's like, what would it be like to have a place to really innovate and to think and to like do radical things?
I love that. And to also like not have to be perfect while you're doing it. Disabled folks are
Yeah.
never allowed grace, even a little bit. It's like we got to be the
Oh yeah.
perfect model minority or we're tossed in the basura forever. And it's like, what? How? I didn't realize that
I've
was.
had people I work with send me like 5 pages of apologies for like missing a conference call, and I'm like, it's okay. Like,
Mhm,
and they're like, well,
mhm,
last time I did this, like my money got taken away, or this happened, or that happened. And I'm
mhm,
like, let's we can afford, grace is free. Like, we
mhm,
can afford to give each other grace. Um,
mhm.
and I just think that there is, yeah, I mean, like, in talking to people, I've met people who are like, well, I can't give that community money because what if they screw things up with it? What if they don't know how to manage it? And I was like, dude, you let like those people have money. You let that dude have money. You let those people have money. Like, and you're worried about giving money to autistic people or people with Down syndrome? Like, check your privilege.
Yeah, it's more of those misconceptions again. Oof. Well, that's why we're in these roles of being forward facing so that we can change the
Yes.
minds of people in mass. Hopefully. I'm not giving up on that. Um okay, so my last question for you is what is something you're looking forward to in the future, whether it's in your personal life or with anything else that you're doing?
Um, I was thinking about this. Um, I like the fall. Like, I really like fall. I am, probably because I'm a December baby. I love sweater weather. I love coats. Like, I love, like, I got a nice, like, comfy, cozy hoodie. Um, I love that. I posted it yesterday, but this is the time of year that Lenny Kravitz comes out wearing his ginormous scarf that's like 50 feet long, um, to remind us that it's fall. And like I appreciate the fall. Like, my favorite, we have a Japanese maple tree in front of our house, and in November it turns like punk red. Like, it's such a gorgeous red. And we moved into the house in November, the year we moved here, and it was that punk red. And I just, like, it is one of my, like, my husband was laughing at me because he's like, "What are you looking at on your phone?" And I'm like, "Pictures of our tree." And he's like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, in November. It turns punk red in November. It's like fall has officially started. We're like a month and a half to punk red tree time." Um, and that just makes me happy. Like, I have a fireplace. I grew up with a fireplace in my grandparents' house, and like, I'm a sucker, like fireplaces, warm cider, like, my daughter's obsessed with holiday records. She plays Mariah way too early. Like, she'll drop Mariah in June if I don't hide the record. Um, but like, we do holiday playlists. Like, my husband has one that's he has one called like "How Black Is Your Christmas," and it's like James Brown, Etta James, like amazing albums. Yeah, Kaya has like all the pop albums. Like, we do themed holiday music nights at our house. Yeah, I'm like, I
I
love this
love
time of the
that
year.
so much. I love that so because I'm also a humongous fan of Christmas. And literally the day after Thanksgiving until I'd say Three Kings Day, I'm playing Christmas.
What's your favorite Christmas tradition that you do?
Oh gosh, well, when we had space, I love decorating the tree. And like I got a while ago, talk about before Disney was evil, I have some old school Disney ornaments that I had from years ago when I was a little kid. And my mom was like, "Hey, you want these?" I was like, "Sure, I'll take
Yes.
them." And then to decorate. And last year, I had my nieces and nephew over, and my brother and my sister, and we all decorated the tree together, and it was so cute. It was just the
Like,
cutest
I
little.
love the
Yes,
decorating of the tree. Like, I
yes.
have a Miss Piggy and Kermit ornament that were mine when I was little kids. And
That's
like,
so cute.
we got the kids like first Christmas ornaments, and like we have ornaments, like we have an ornament from of the Eiffel Tower, which is like I met my best friend in Paris. Like, we have ornaments that represent like different, like we have like a Black Panther ornament, we have a Prince ornament, we have like when we go on trips, like when we went to Ireland, we bought it to go to the disability summer school several years ago. Bought an ornament from Galway. And like, I to me it's such a especially since we keep all our photos on the phone now, like I feel like your Christmas tree can still be such a like such a like almost like a photo album of like your history.
Absolutely. I love decorating for holidays, and every year for all, I would say just about all the holidays, my mom would decorate the house and we'd do it together, and that was such a cute little fun thing to do. And all the other family shenanigans going on,
Yeah.
doing that seems so normal. It was
Oh,
feeling like the
absolutely.
normal thing. So that was awesome. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much
This was
for
so much
having me.
fun.
Thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you all for watching us chat and be silly together, and also drop so many damn gems, yo. You was dropping gems.
This was a blast. We have to do this again.
Oh heck yeah, I'm having a lot of people back on for a 2.0 because we talked and talked and talked so much, and it brought up even more questions. And so I was like, oh gosh, okay, we got to do this again. So yeah, so thank y'all so much for
Absolutely.
watching.
Thank you for
Um,
watching.
and y'all check out the next episode. This was my so-called disabled life. Go check us out on YouTube, LinkedIn, and yeah, stay well and be safe. Bye, y'all.